call today. Let us move to our next section, which is Srimad Bhagavatam class. May I know who all have joined the call this morning? Hare Krishna. Happy New Year to everyone.
Hare Krishna, Radha Pyari Mataji, Damrat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada, Jai Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Priti Dasi from Charlotte. Hare Krishna and Happy New Year to all devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Priti Mataji, Dhanavad Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call and giving you a beautiful lesson every day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Radha Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas. I'm wishing everyone Happy New Year.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. How is your trip, Mataji?
It was good, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Radha Pyari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. This is Shyama Gauri Devi Dasi from Charlotte and wishing Happy New Year to everyone.
Hare Krishna, Shyama Gauri Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call and wishing you Happy New Year, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Assemble devotees. Mohini Lakshmi from the third and Happy Krishna conscious New Year to everyone.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call and wish you Happy New Year, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to all the assembled devotees. This is Shiromani Nandarani Devidasi from Krishna Kathadesh. Wish you all Happy New Year, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Shiromani Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Wish you Happy New Year, you too, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Radha Pyari Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to the assembled devotees. This is Anita Ramya from Sharjah. Very happy Krishna conscious New Year to all of them and to you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anta Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call and wish you Happy New Year, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Radha Pyari Mataji, all glories Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajis. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Raleigh. Happy New Year to everyone.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call and giving your association. Wish you Happy New Year, you too, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to all the assembled devotees. This is Sushmita from Canada. Happy New Year Mataji and to all the devotees. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Sushmita Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call and wish you Happy New Year, you too, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Anybody else would like to introduce more?
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances and my humble obeisances to all the devotees on the call. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Nitai Gauranga. This is Vanishri from India.
Hare Krishna, Vanishri Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call and wish you Happy New Year to Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavas pranams to you and all devotees here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Guru and Gauranga. Happy Krishna conscious New Year to everyone. This is Ekaradika Leela Devidasi.
Hare Krishna Ekaradha Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call and wish you happy Krishna conscious New Year, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha conference call. Today we are fortunate to have His Grace Akincana Krishna Prabhuji to enlighten us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam 6th canto, 5th chapter, text 40. First, I would like to hand over call to Ayan Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. I would like to hand over call to you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. I wish all the assembled devotees a very happy Krishna conscious New Year. Today we have our guest, His Grace Akincana Krishna Das Prabhu. His introduction goes like this. Akincana Krishna Das hails from Mumbai. He dedicated full time to monastic services, Brahmacharya, in ISKCON in the year 1999. He had a short stint working in the industry for 2 years in Blue Star Limited and PC Soft Pvt. Ltd. After completing his graduation in electronics and telecom engineering and post-graduation in business management, served as value educator in schools, Gita for college youths, and gives seminars for corporate young professionals on stress and time management, Gita principles for a satisfying life, and motivational seminars for the youths in ISKCON Chaupati's Prerana Youth Festival. He is a regular Srimad Bhagavatam speaker in ISKCON Gurgaon Chaupati. He has been taking weekly spiritual discourses for devotee communities in Panvel, Kharghar, and Seawoods, South Mumbai. He also organizes 2-month spiritual trips and talks for the British sabbatical youths from the Bhaktivedanta Manor every year. Hare Krishna Mataji. Please take over the call.
Thank you so much for Prabhuji, nice introduction. Hare Krishna, Akincana Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for giving your valuable time and association to us this morning and enlightening on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. Wish you happy Krishna conscious New Year, Prabhuji. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha conference call. Hare Krishna. I would like to hand over call to you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhaubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are reading from the 6th canto, 5th chapter, text number 40. Hope you can see my screen. So let's start.
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right, great. Nittam pumsam viragah syat. Nittam pumsam viragah syat. Tvaya kevalinam risha. Manyase yadyupashamam. Sneha pasha nikrintanam. Translation. Prajapati Daksh continued, if you think that simply awakening the sense of renunciation will detach one from the material world, I must say that unless full knowledge is awakened, simply changing dresses as you have done cannot possibly bring detachment. Prajapati Daksh was correct in stating that changing one's dress cannot detach one from this material world. The sannyasis of Kali Yuga who change their robes from white to saffron and then think that they can do whatever they like are more abominable than materialistic grahasthas. This is not recommended anywhere. Prajapati Daksh was right in pointing out this defect. But he did not know that Narad Muni had aroused the spirit of renunciation in the Haryashvas and Savalashvas through full knowledge. Thus, enlightened renunciation is desirable. One should enter the renounced order with full knowledge, Gyan Vairagya. For the perfection of life is possible for one who renounces this material world in that way. This elevated stage can be reached very easily as supported by the statements of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.7. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojata Janayatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayadahaitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. If one seriously engages in devotional service to Lord Vasudeva, Gyan and Vairagya are automatically manifest in one's person. There is no doubt of this. Prajapati Daksha's accusation that Narada had not actually elevated his sons to the platform of knowledge was not factual. All the sons of Prajapati Daksh had first been raised to the platform of Gyan and had then automatically renounced this world. In summary, unless one's knowledge is awakened, renunciation cannot take place, for without elevated knowledge, one cannot give up attachment for material enjoyment. Hare Krishna. Prajapati Daksh continued, if you think that simply awakening the sense of renunciation will detach one from the material world, I must say that unless full knowledge is awakened, simply changing dress, as you have done, cannot possibly bring detachment. So the chapter is entitled Narad Muni cursed by Daksh Prajapati. So, just to give a little background, that Daksh Prajapati had produced 10,000 children who were called as Haryashvas, and they were sent to the holy place, Narayana Saras, where they performed austerities and devotional service, but with the intention of becoming capable of producing progeny, just as their father Daksha. So Narad Muni, having observed their dedication to the austerities and the level of purity that they had attained by the process of austerities, he preached to them, saying that since you have already reached such high exalted states of detachment, it is pointless to again go back to material life. And in the beginning of this chapter, Narada mentions an allegorical story, which is in a way very difficult for common people to understand. But the Haryashvas, the sons who had very fine intelligence, they could immediately understand the purport of what was being spoken. And they immediately took to spiritual path, and they never returned home. Daksh Prajapati was very upset, but then Brahma told him to again produce more children, and he again produced 1,000 children. And that's why he's called Daksha, because it is quite inconceivable today to conceive, to understand how a human can produce so many children. 11,000 children in total. So definitely he was highly expert at producing children. And the word expert in Sanskrit is Daksha. And that's why his name is also Daksh. So again, he produced children who were known as Savalashva, the second batch, and they were again sent to the same spot. And again, Narada, seeing their dedication and their purity that they attained through the austerities, again he went and inspired them to follow the path of their elder brothers. And he invoked that sentiment in them. And they naturally followed. And as a result, they also attained the same destination as their elder brothers. That means they never again went back home to accomplish the purpose that their father had entrusted to them. So when Narada personally comes and breaks the news to Daksha that your sons have now renounced and they are not coming home, Daksha loses his temper. And he starts now a barrage of insults and condemnation of Narada. And these are the series of verses spoken by Daksha, blaspheming Narada. So here in this verse, he's speaking philosophy. Even though he's blaspheming, but in that blasphemy also, there is a lot of philosophy. And he's accusing Narada. And he's saying that simply awakening the sense of renunciation will detach one from the material world. If you think like that, it's not true. For actual detachment to develop, then one has to awaken knowledge and vairagya from within. Yes, one should have that knowledge. Awakening of knowledge gives rise to detachment. That is what is mentioned here. Yes. So what Daksha Prajapati is saying is true, but it does not apply to Narada. And as a result of that, what he is doing is actually blaspheming, and that constitutes an offense. Daksha has committed an offense. And the reason Acharya has explained that because he also offended Lord Shiva, and one offense leads to another offense. And as a result of that, because Lord Shiva is a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, and as a result of that offense, again, now he's entered into another phase of offenses against Narada. So he's saying that you cannot awaken a sense of renunciation till knowledge awakens in one's heart. But Narada had actually done that. He had actually given them knowledge, awakened that knowledge. And when knowledge awakens, when bhakti awakens in a person's heart, then what follows is Gyan and Vairagya. So there are two things. One is called as Vairagya and another is called as Virakti. So Vairagya is something when you give up externally. And Virakti is something that you experience internally. So he's saying that you have told them to become Vairagis, but in actuality, they have not developed Virakti. Virakti is a sense of detachment. So simply changing dress will not work. And let us discuss upon this, what again now as principally. So basically now let us, before we enter into the subject matter, let us just deal with what is going on here topically. Is you see that how careful we should be when we deal with devotees. Because, Daksh Prajapati is no ordinary soul. He was a highly learned Brahmin. But still, despite all that knowledge, he misunderstood Narada. And he started seeing fault in Narada. So you see that when there is attachment, when you have material attachments, then despite that knowledge, you will always come to the wrong conclusion. So therefore, you end up then criticizing devotees and using knowledge as an excuse to find faults. So that is what happens. So therefore, we have to be very careful, because when our attachments are affected, or we feel we are in a bad mood, then we can use the same philosophy against somebody and claim that somebody is not following or somebody is not this. But how do we know what's going on in somebody else's heart? Are we gods? Only Krishna knows what's in somebody's heart. So here, now we understand from the Srimad Bhagavatam that Narad Muni is a pure soul. He has delivered so many great devotees. Uttanapad and Dhruv, Prachina Barishad, and Prahlad, and he's a guru of great devotees. And he's a great soul, he's pure, so that the Lord has given it to us. But Daksha is not able to see that. He's not able to see it. So therefore, unless a person is pure, one cannot really come to the right conclusions. It takes one to know one, as they say. It takes one to know one. Daksha Prajapati is not on that level to understand, to fathom the caliber of Narada. And he's only reacting because he's so offended, because he has lost his children, 11,000 children. He's naturally affected. Materially, he's in material consciousness. And that's what happens when our sense gratification gets affected, then we become angry. And then when we become angry, even though we have knowledge, then we misapply that knowledge and see faults in people, in devotees, and we commit further offenses. And we fall down. So here is a warning, what we shouldn't do, because you are dealing with devotees here. And on the other hand, we can see in the life of Narada as a preacher, what he has to go through. The blasphemy of Daksha, and he has to hear all these very sharp, insulting words. For a person of his caliber, who's an associate of Lord Narayan, also has to hear such harsh words, that you are a pretender and you've simply taken on a dress, you are envious of me and my prosperity, of my children, and you are trying to brainwash and make my children artificially into like you, and all these words which seem so very uncalled for and inappropriate for Narada. But Narada had to hear all these things. But the way Narada retaliated was that he just kept quiet. He never retorted. He just was fixed in his peace. He never harbored any malice towards Daksha. He was unaffected. And that is the hallmark of a devotee. That is a hallmark of a devotee. Forgiveness. There was no ill feeling in his heart, even for Daksha, even though Daksha was on a, going on with his rant of blasphemies. So definitely, as devotees, we all will be tested, and we cannot be in an imaginary world thinking that, now since I'm a devotee, nothing bad or wrong will happen to me, everybody will speak sweetly to me. And no, even Narada, and we all, walking on the footsteps of Narada, who's our Acharya, who is a preacher, and walking in his footsteps, Srila Prabhupada, also who preached and made so many devotees all over the world. And naturally, preachers who are making devotees will face the brunt of anger of materialistic people. Because naturally, we are taking away their, objects of gratification. Maybe their children or their businesses. And, can you think of it like when a person becomes devotee, he stops drinking and, smoking, and what a big loss to these industries who are manufacturing these products, isn't it? Imagine what will happen if our preaching expands to such an extent that, it becomes noteworthy, that even industries start thinking that we have become a threat to their existence. Like in India, there was this revolution that Ramdev, that Sadhu Yogi Ramdev Baba, who revolutionized consumer products like, toothpastes and things like that. And he said we shouldn't use these modern things, chemicals, we should use natural things. And, then he popularized yoga, and then people just moved on from using all those, fancy things, chemicals, to using more natural things. So then he became, all the multinational companies in India, he gave them a run for their buck. They all went literally out of, now they also started changing their tone of their marketing. And now even I saw one, toothpaste ad, Colgate, that what, Veda Shakti or something like that. Can you believe? I was shocked when I saw that. Colgate is, putting that label, Veda Shakti, toothpaste. So I was surprised. So now today they've realized that unless you do not use words like Veda Shakti or something Vedic or something natural and scriptural, people will not now purchase your products. At least in India they won't. So in India now they have changed their marketing style. So naturally, when preachers become popular, then naturally they become a threat to many people in the society. Like I remember once we were going for yatra, to Vrindavan or something. We had booked the entire train more or less, or at least a few compartments, all full of devotees. So we were all doing kirtan, or we were just sitting down probably. We had just boarded, and half an hour later, this chai wala comes. Chai, and he was going through the compartment. And everywhere he was going, 1-2 compartments, he's seeing all devotees only. And they are saying, nay, I'm going to chai. He's saying chai, and nobody's taking tea from it because naturally devotees don't take it. So that chai wala became so irritated and he said, "Are ye log sab Hare Krishna wale hain. Dhanda chaupat ho gaya hamara." He sweat at devotees and he left. He was so frustrated. So you see, therefore, Prabhupada, and the Acharyas also, they say that devotees should be fearless because it's natural that we will meet with such devotees, not devotees rather, such people who will be frustrated with what we are doing. And they will criticize us. They'll try to blaspheme us. But we have to be very cool, just as Narada, and we have to be very fearless like Narada. Absolutely fearless. There's no reason for taking any anxieties. A devotee should be nischint, confident that Krishna will protect us. And it happens to everybody. All great saints have to go through a lot of persecutions. Like, recently I went to Dehu Gaon. I don't know if you all have gone to Dehu. In Maharashtra, there is a great saint, very popular, whose name was Sant Tukaram. Prabhupada writes about him in Srimad Bhagavatam. He was the guru of Shivaji. Samarth Ramdas and Tukaram were the two gurus of Shivaji Maharaj. So he was born and he lived in Dehu Gaon. So when he became very popular, because he was a great poet, even though he was uneducated, but he would compose poetry, which they called as abhangas. And he wrote such beautiful poetries, and so many of them, that his popularity started spreading. His fame started spreading everywhere. And the Brahmins in those days, at those times, his contemporaries, had become so envious of him that they said that you are not a Brahmin, and moreover, you have no right to preach about the Lord, and you're loudly chanting. All these things are not appropriate. It's not fit for you. Moreover, you're composing poetry. What need is there for you to compose poetry when the great acharyas of the past have already given us poetry? And they're all in the proper language which is prescribed in the scriptures to be used in glorification of the Lord. That is Sanskrit. And why are you composing poetry in Prakrita Bhasha, in Marathi? That's not right what you are doing. You are going against the injunctions of the Vedas. You should immediately give up. Stop chanting. Stop this nonsense. And throw all what you have composed into this Indrayani river. And the Sant Tukaram, he was a very respectful person by nature. And he thought that, okay, these Brahmins are insisting, they are the upholders of religion, they are the custodians of religion. I must obey. If that is what they say, then they are the mouth of the Lord. Yes, so that is what the Lord also desires. So probably I must just follow. And with a very, very heavy heart, he took all of his life's work, all his poems, and wrapped it in a silk cloth, and in the presence of everyone, he just immersed it into the Indrayani. That's a lot of poems, I mean, if you go, there is a Gatha Mandir in Tehu. And you know what they've done? That Gatha Mandir has on the walls all the poems, all the Gathas of Tukaram put into marble slabs and plastered on the walls. That huge memorial, all the walls are filled with his hundreds and hundreds of Gathas. So much, so many of them. His entire life's work. And he had to, just immerse it. And he couldn't even do Sankirtan. He couldn't even loudly chant the Lord's names because they had forbidden him from doing that. So he was so depressed. He had become so anxious that he just sat under a tree and he was just thinking of the Lord. And just see, the life of a devotee is not an easy one. The Lord really tests his devotees. And then finally, the Lord, 13 days or something like that, he slept on that slab. It's still there as a memorial. Slept on that slab without eating, without drinking anything, just remembering the Lord and slowly chanting the Lord's names. And the Lord personally appeared from that river and handed over all those gathas, which were in pristine condition, unaffected by that water, and returned it to Sant Tukaram. And when everybody heard about that episode, they developed great faith on Sant Tukaram. So he went through that very difficult phase of persecution. But then at the end of it, the Lord protected him, and his fame became even greater than what he had before. And in fact, he became so famous that he prayed to the Lord that everywhere I go, people are just chanting my glories, and I don't want it. Please, oh Lord, please take me back home, back to Godhead. I can't tolerate this fame anymore. It's too painful for me. And that's why they say that, in his biographers say that that's one of the reasons why he went back home, back to Godhead. Because of his prayer, that he couldn't deal with that fame. So that's one thing, that Daksh is blaspheming Narada. Certainly we can also expect a life of persecution. We may be, but we shouldn't see it as persecution. We should learn to see it as tests. The Lord is trying to purify us, to test our humility. We should just persevere, and we should think of the Lord and develop humility, learn to forgive, and practice non-violence. So, as Narada has done. So that is the example he's setting for us. Yes. So now let us analyze what Daksh Prajapati is saying. He's saying that how does a person become renounced? By awakening of knowledge. Yes? By awakening of knowledge. Yes, it's not simply by the change of dress. And that is a fact. You know, in the episode of Ramanujacharya, when some bandits had attacked and they had come to kill Ramanujacharya, now again, you see, again, a life of persecution. Just see what the acharyas have to go through. So one of his assistants said that, you know, Ramanujacharya, it would be better that you give up your sannyas clothes and I will don those clothes. I will dress up as sannyasi and I will pose as Ramanujacharya, whereas you can escape this place. And they exchanged their clothes. So initially Ramanujacharya hesitated that why I should be doing that, why I should risk your life. And isn't it wrong that a sannyasi should give up his clothes? At that time, that very devoted follower of, I think it was Quraysh or someone, I don't remember, but so then he said that, you know, Acharya, that a sannyasi is not a sannyasi simply by dress. It's by his knowledge. Just as an inspector. Is an inspector because he's wearing uniform? Not really. If that was the case, then, you know, the drama parties, you know, the people who perform these dramas, you know, they dress up as policemen, the doctors and whatnot. You know, so do they become doctors just by wearing the dress of a doctor and a stethoscope around their necks and, you know, wearing, you know, the artificial, you know, the uniforms and the artificial guns and things like that? Do they become an inspector? No, definitely not. So the clothes don't define. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, who's a sannyasi? Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karotiha sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na chakriya. So those who are detached, anashrita karma phalam, that means a person who is engaged in karma and but he's not attached to the karma phal. That means he offers it to Krishna. Idam Krishnaya idam na mama. He is a sannyasi. Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karotiyaha. Sannyasi is not sitting idle. He is also doing work. Karyam karma karotiyaha. Yaha, that person, sa sannyasi, he is a sannyasi. Cha yogi cha, he is a yogi. Na niragnir na chakriya, not someone who simply gives up work. No, one should work and then one should give up the fruits of one's work for Krishna's service. So that is the real sannyasi. And what Daksha is saying is true. It's a fact. Only that he doesn't know that Narada is truly a sannyasi. He's not simply wearing the dress of a sannyasi or a vairagi, but he's actually renounced. We should not wrongly accuse somebody or that, you know, saying that you are not a sadhu, then he's actually a sadhu. So, so that is a very important thing. And he says that you have done, cannot possibly bring detachment. So what has Narada done? Narada has preached to them. Narada has preached to them and actually made them also detached. Has made them detached. So that is also a fact. They have actually become qualified by the association of Narada, by their dedication to Narada. You know, like for example, like if the example is given that say a girl before her marriage, she may be lazy, she doesn't know how to cook, she may, you know, sleep late, wake up late, she may want bed tea and all those kind of things. But then one day she gets married, she falls in love and whatever, she gets married and subsequently she has children. Now the child needs milk every half an hour or an hour or something like that. And even in the middle of the night, the child may wake up and, you know, cry and And then the mother has to wake up, and then she will breastfeed the child, and whatever, to clean up the mess or whatever. So you see that how even in ordinary dealings, ordinary materialistic life, we see that the transformation from being so self-centered before having a child, all of a sudden then they become very responsible. They care for the child, and now their focus is on the child, not so much on themselves. They can even give up their sleep. They wake up in the middle of the night and do so many things for the children. Naturally, now they have become detached. Previously, they were attached, they were lazy. But we see that how a girl is transformed when she becomes a mother. So she's developed that detachment now. Yes. I know in my family, like always, my mother would always cook extra so that the family members don't go hungry. I'm sure that in many families it's like that. All generally mothers, they do that. Cook extra. And then what she will eat is what is left over from the previous meal. Because she doesn't want to waste. She doesn't want to throw it. Shouldn't throw food, So then and that goes on year after year. Throughout their life, they do that. Isn't it? Eating stale food and making sure all the family members are well fed. How is she able to do such austerities? How did she develop such great detachment from eating fresh food and caring for herself? It's only because of her attachment to her children, to her family. She knows, after the child is born, whatever is needed to take care of the child, the mother learns. Okay, ऐसा करना है, बच्चे का मालिश करना है, ऐसे करना है, ऐसे नहीं लेटाना है उसको, this means this, and all that, whatever knowledge is needed for taking care of the child, naturally the girl becomes enthusiastic to learn. So what she naturally develops is knowledge, and she develops detachment. But how did that happen? It happened because of her attachment for her child. So that attachment you can equate with bhakti. So when a person becomes attached, or he develops bhakti towards Krishna or towards the Guru, then naturally two things will follow in his life. That is knowledge. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of his Atma and Bhagavan and his relationship with Bhagavan. And he will develop that detachment subsequently. So it is a natural. What sadhana or what austerities did the girl do? Nothing. But the moment attachment develops in your heart, then naturally Gyan and Vairagya manifests. There is no need of any separate sadhana. And we see that the girls don't do any sadhana. But then how did they develop the knowledge? How did they develop the renunciation? That is only because of their attachment. So, because of the attachment to Narada, this great soul, it is a very quick way of attaining Gyan and Vairagya. And that is why these sons of Daksha were able to develop that in them. Yes. And they became qualified. They actually became qualified. So, so it is said in the scriptures, in the previous verse also, you see Daksh Prajapati is saying that all the devotees of the Lord, but you are very kind, but you, all the devotees of the Lord, except you, are very kind to conditioned souls and are eager to benefit others. But you are not benefiting others. Although you wear the dress of a devotee, you create enmity with people who are not your enemies. Or you break friendship and create enmity between friends. Are you not ashamed of posing as a devotee while performing these abominable actions? See the blasphemy, yes, all these words of blasphemy. Okay. And then he says, thus committing violence against other living entities and yet claiming to be an associate of Lord Vishnu, you are defaming the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You needlessly created a mentality of renunciation in innocent boys, and therefore you are shameless and devoid of compassion. How could you travel with the personal associates of the Supreme Lord? So he's saying that you are misrepresenting Narada. Yes, misrepresenting Narada. You have misguided my innocent boys. Misguided. So then again he says, again we are going backwards, yes, one word. So Prajapati Daksha said, my sons were not at all freed from the 3 debts. So what are those debts? So the scriptures say that you are indebted to your fathers and your pitrus. You are indebted to the rishis, and you are indebted to the gods. Everybody. And Manu Samhita clearly says that unless you do not pay back your debts to them, you cannot take to the path of renunciation. So that is also a fact. So nothing that Daksh Prajapati is saying is non-scriptural. So whatever Daksha is saying is actually based on Shastra only. So he's saying that my sons have, not paid back the debts to their forefathers, to the devatas, and to the sages. So you have told them to artificially leave. That is not right. So, again, now there is a very important principle. So here you see, again, what he's saying is the truth. That's a fact. But then his basic assumption that his sons are not detached is wrong. And the debts only remain. You are only indebted as long as you are attached. You see, that is the catch. Like, for example, in the Gita, that verse which we have read, Nahi kashchit kshanam api jatu tishtatya karmakrit. And also in one verse, he says, Shariram yatra pichate na prasiddhi da karmana. That verse actually, where Krishna tells Arjun that, you can't even maintain your body if you do not engage in any kind of profession. Everybody has to be engaged in a profession. Yes. So what are the professions? Either you're a Brahmin, either you're Kshatriya, either Vaishya, Shudra, right? So he's telling Arjun that, this is how the principle works. God has made duties in this world, professions, and everybody has to take up a profession according to one's swabhava, according to one's nature. And we all have certain natures, and according to that, someone becomes Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So the reason why he was telling Arjun this, that Arjun wanted to give up his profession and take up to some other profession just because he felt that now his profession is a little awkward and inconvenient. So Krishna is saying, no, that doesn't work like that. Every profession, the profession of a Brahmin is not easy. Even though they get a lot of respect in the society, but Brahmin has to live a life of austerities and poverty. He has to live on whatever he gets, which comes on its own accord. He cannot charge a salary, he cannot have a rate card. So that is an austerity for a Brahmin, and he has to perform these karma kanda yagyas. Many times he has to offer animal sacrifices and all that, which may not be very good. And sometimes if he makes mistakes, then he has to bear the brunt. He has to take the sins of those people for whom he is conducting the yagya. I met some, Karmakandi Brahmin in Vrindavan who had become a guide. He had become a Braj guide. So I told him, "Kya karte ho aap?" So I said, "नहीं, मैं पहले ना पूजा करता था. मैं कर्मकांडी ब्राह्मण था. फिर बाद में क्या हुआ, हमको पाप लगता था कि ना कुछ गड़बड़ हो जाती थी तो पाप भी लगता है, इसलिए हमने सोचा चलो चेंज कर लेते हैं." So then he changed his profession. So everybody understands that, a Brahmin, not profession, didn't change his profession. Even being a guide is a Brahmin's service only. So he said that it's a little tough. So I just became like a guide, spiritual guide. So you see, that is what happens. So being a Brahmin is not easy. Being a Kshatriya is also definitely not easy. You may get killed, you may die on the battlefield. Is that easy? Then what about being a Vaishya? Being a Vaishya, you may have to lie. And so many management issues and this, that, and people are undercutting you and cheating you. And there's a great risk that you have to take with your money and all those kind of things. So is a Vaishya's job easy? No. So from outside, it may look like that is easy, but you cannot. So then Krishna says that, why did the Lord make these duties? In the first place, you have to understand. He's telling Arjuna, yes, Gita. He says that the living entity, the soul, when he comes into this world, he comes with the desire to enjoy. He comes for bhoga. He's come here to become a bhogi. He has not come here to become a yogi. Yes? So now, that desire to enjoy is there in us. Now, how can we become free from that desire to enjoy? Because as long as it's desire to enjoy, we will be stuck in this world. There will be repetition of birth and death. And moreover, enjoyment in itself is not satisfying, because every enjoyment is temporary. Yes? Ultimately, every enjoyment finally leads to misery only. Isn't it? I mean, just recently, in fact, day before yesterday, I was in a Shok Sabha, condolence meet, where one of our congregation devotees passed away. He was 80 years old. Shok Sabha, isn't it? I mean, isn't it sorrowful to see our near and dear ones leave? That is what is the ultimate reality for all of us. It's sad. Material life is like that. Nothing is permanent. So that is a path of bhoga, enjoyment, that only it gives you temporary happiness and ends in misery only. So now, how does a person who has this enjoying mentality come to the stage of developing detachment and becoming a yogi? How does a person from being a bhogi come to the stage of becoming a yogi? That is the question. So, there are certain people who say, enjoy so much. Like, in Pune, there is this spiritual organization who say from Sambhog to Samadhi. Sambhog karo. Itana karo ki that you become frustrated with that and you want it no more. Then when you sit to meditate, then you will have only thoughts of God and nothing else. But because as long as you have these desires to enjoy, you cannot focus, and which is a fact. But the solution that they give, that means enjoy sense gratification so much that you get frustrated. That is not true. You will never, by engaging in sense gratification, it's not a guarantee that you will come to the path of then spirituality. You will develop detachment from sense gratification. It does not happen like that. Like Prabhupada, he gives that example that of a woman who gets pregnant, and when she is going to deliver her first baby, she screams and shouts. It's so unbearable for her. Sometimes, they say I think one of our family members were also saying that the nurses also sometimes, when they get fed up with the screaming of the lady, they say, Arey, when you are enjoying that time, you did not think. Now you shut up and just tolerate, don't harass us. That kind of thing. So the thing is that Prabhupada gives the example that, say, a lady comes and she's delivering and she understands how difficult it is to deliver a baby, and she sometimes resolves that this is enough. One child is enough. I don't want to go through this again. But then again next year she comes. Again, sometimes she comes third time, fourth time, and she delivers. So a bitter experience in sense gratification is not necessary to put out the desire for sense gratification. This is the proof. You keep going back. You keep going back. You keep going back. Yes. So that is one sect of spiritualists who believe that engaging in sense gratification indiscriminately will lead you to the path of detachment. Well, that is not the way recommended in the scriptures. Yes. Okay. Now, what is the other extreme? Another sect of people who say that simply by taking sannyas, danda grahane matrena nar narayana bhavet, something like that. That means simply by accepting a sannyas and you reject material world, you become a sannyasi. Well, now that is also very risky because again, it has been described here. Here, Daksha Prajapati is refuting that is not going to happen. Simply by rejection, because you have given it up. You have developed vairagya. That means externally you have given it up, but in your mind still dwells on enjoyment. And as long as your mind is still dwelling on enjoyment, you cannot fix your mind on Krishna, on your spiritual development. So, naturally, the path is somewhere in between. Not indiscriminate sense gratification and not extreme renunciation. So what is the path? The path is regulated sense gratification, which means that you regulate your senses. That means whatever Prabhupada has given us, the process. Okay, you like to eat wonderful foods, never mind, you make wonderful foods. Yes, and offer it to Krishna. Of course, there are certain restrictions, avoiding, meat, onion, garlic, tea, coffee, and things like that. And by regulating your senses and engaging your senses in Krishna's service gradually by following principles. And again, as what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that by fulfilling your duties, like it may be difficult for Arjun to be a Kshatriya, but nevertheless, if he goes through the routines, he will get purified. In fact, the hardships are meant for that purpose, to put out that desire for sense gratification. They say there are no free lunches in this world. Like I don't know if I told you this. Like once a man along with his wife and his 7 children were going on the road. So they see on restaurant a dhaba with a board saying that eat as much as you want. The bill will be paid by your grandson. So he thought, oh wow, that's great, because my children are very young. I don't have any grandsons. Who knows in the future what will happen? Come, let's go. Let's eat. So he took his family there and they ate to their heart's content, and the bill comes 10,000 rupees. So the waiter brings a bill to him and he says, bill. So the man says, why? I'm not going to pay the bill, because you have put such a big board outside. The bill will be paid by your grandson. I don't have grandsons. See, all my children are so young. So then the waiter said, sir, this is not your bill. This is your grandfather's bill. You have to pay. So basically, it's a joke. So trying to say that in this world, there are no free lunches. God has made it like that. That means if you want any enjoyment, there is what? An associated responsibility attached to it. Like, for example, if you want to eat in a restaurant, you want to eat pizzas, okay, you go there. But then you have to pay the bill, and that is a restriction. Every time you eat a pizza, you are enjoying, but at the same time, there's a thought in your mind, "Arey yaar, pura parivar ke saath hum ja rahe hain, how much expenses?" So that thought of that expenses, that responsibility of paying the bill, restricts your desire to unrestrictedly indulge in your senses, and as a result, you jeopardize your spiritual progress, and also you ruin your health. Just imagine if we eat pizzas 7 days a week, if it was free, what would happen to us? All that cheese and, and maida and all that white flour and will ruin us. So you see, it's a Krishna's way of keeping a check. Okay, see, a boy falls in love with a girl, fine, but then he cannot just go out and enjoy. He has to take responsibility of the girl, and therefore then there is that marriage sanskar. He has to accept her as a wife, provide for her, protect her, and that takes efforts. And then there will be children. He has to educate the children. He has to provide for them, and it's a big responsibility. So what happens then? That desire to enjoy is gone. Then he'll think that it's big responsibility. I tell you, when I was in Kashmir once, I had gone with parents and we had lived in a houseboat for about 6 days. So kya ho gaya? So there was this man who was rowing the boat on Dal Lake. So my mother was speaking to the boatman, who happened to be a Muslim from the Muslim faith. It was a Kashmiri, a very bright face, very handsome boy. So my mother was talking to him and said that, I forget his name, what was the name, but he was saying, so are you married? So I said, nahi, shadi nahi ki ab tak. So when are you getting married? So whom are you going to get married to? Definitely a Kashmiri, no? So he said, no, Mataji, hum nahi, Kashmiri se shadi nahi karenge. I'm not get married to a Kashmiri. So then my mother said, why? Kashmiri girls are so beautiful. No. I don't want to. No, I don't like Kashmiri. I will get married to anybody except Kashmiri. So then my mother said, really? Oh, okay. All right. So all the best. And then there was silence for some time. And then after that, that boy again retorts, but actually, Mataji, kya hai na? Mera man karta hai ki I will take a wife from every state in the world. Not just Kashmiri. Yes, why not Kashmiri also? If I had the means, I would have accepted a wife from every country and every state of the world. So as you know, I'm not sure, but I'm sure that you know actually, that according to the Muslim faith, and in fact, even in the Vedas, man can accept more than one wife. At least a Kshatriya could. Yeah, and even a Brahmin in those days, in those yugas. Like we see, Arjuna had many wives, Yudhishthira had, and Bhima also had. So the rule was that as long as you want to enjoy somebody, if you like somebody, never mind, you can accept them as your wife, but then you have to take the responsibility. But then when you think of responsibility, then you think, I will not be able to maintain them. So that's what the man also said, that I desire that I wish I could have so many wives, from every state and country, but then I can't. So therefore, I'm just taking it easy. So the thought of taking responsibility puts out the desire for enjoyment, isn't it? And that's how the Lord has designed it. And therefore, if there is anything available free of charge, then there is a trap. It is a trap actually, and it is not going to be good for us. But it's not going to bring about progress, spiritual progress, development. Yeah, I'll just tell you, I'll just wind up with one example. Once Radhanath Swami Maharaj, my guru, was questioned that many times we go on local trains in Bombay and we meet up with these, people, beggars, performing these arts, singing and things like that. I don't know what you call in the West, probably buskers. So like that, we also have in local trains. Poor people actually, singing and something like that. So should we pay them? Are we obligated to pay them when they come to us for money? So then His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj gave a very nice example, and he said that if you happen to enjoy what they have performed, then you are obligated. But if you have not, if you are completely in your own world, you are doing your business, and when he has done his performance and he comes to you for money, then you are not obligated. But if you have enjoyed, in your heart, you liked what they did and you enjoyed it, then it becomes your duty to pay. Because unless you don't pay, you will be debt-ridden. And as long as you've got debts, you cannot be liberated. So therefore, what Daksha could not understand here is that his sons were actually detached. And as long as you are detached, there are no debts for you. There's nothing that they want to enjoy in this world. So naturally, they are freed from their debts to their fathers, the forefathers, the rishis, and the gods. And they are free to serve Krishna wholeheartedly. Krishna consciousness. That is the science behind karma. This is the science of karma, which we also need to understand for Krishna consciousness. Yes, so which Daksha knew very well, and therefore he's explaining it. So, Hare Krishna. So, any all right. So, what is the process here?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Wonderful class, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. If anybody have any questions or realization, please go ahead, devotees.
Hare Krishna, Akincana Krishna Prabhu. Your classes are always so wonderful. Sukhakar Krishnadas from Chennai.
You are always very encouraging, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Sukhakara Prabhu. Thank you.
Prabhu, we were telling about some people they said you can enjoy, and after enjoying, you'll become liberated. With Rajanish, the Rajanish group, no, that, and even now there are people who are reading Rajanish books. I don't understand how that person wrote the books. That you just enjoy and then you will become totally liberated. And it is still being. Some people are even encouraging such activities, and that books is still being sold. And how they allowed him to come and do such work, no? That you can just be with go for 100 women, and then you will become totally liberated. And that means he's just giving dog mentality, no? He's giving people the dog mentality. Yeah. So how can he be God? He's not he's also dog. I mean, Prabhupada really rejected.
See, Prabhupada said, that why do people get cheated? He spoke on this topic and he said that, people cheat people because people want to be cheated. Yeah. Like, for example, some people who want the label of religion and at the same time they want to do what they want to do. So there are some gurus who say that, okay, fine, you do whatever you want. And then they give them the label of disciple. It's like, for example, if you want to purchase gold, but then you don't want to pay the price of gold, then you'll go to a fake gold shop and purchase things which look like gold, but it is not gold. It's like that. So it is also good. Such people also want to follow that religion. So let them.
But such religion everybody wants because they can enjoy, no? They think, masti karo, you're getting such things. But this only leads. All this, the AIDS and other thing came because of that only. Because they told you can do unlimited sex enjoyment.
Kind of. Yeah. No, but they have very strict, I've done some research on that. They have very strict rules as to, one shouldn't be carriers of any disease and all. Those things and all, they are very expert.
But still adharma, no? Whether disease or not.
Yeah, philosophy is certainly is different. It's like, it's not the correct philosophy. I already spoke about that. Yeah. And I think in America, he was in America for a few years and he ran into controversies and things like that there.
And he died in a bad way. He died in a very bad way.
And they deported him back to India, something like that. He was in India, he ran into trouble, then he went to America, there he ran into trouble, then again he was something like that, something. Yeah. Yeah. But then he was extremely, extremely charismatic as a preacher and as a personality, could really, and some people are, having those kala. And people today generally they go for the externals. It's good to have these things, but at the same time, you should have the substance also. So, Hare Krishna, yeah.
But your class is fantastic. You covered all the sides from all angles. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Dandavad Pranam, Prabhu.
Thank you. You are always encouraging. Always, without fail. I can expect some compliments from Sukhakara Prabhu. and you do it from your heart. So that's what is the best thing.
And it is truth also. I'm not trying to glorify you without anything. आपने बहुत बढ़िया काम किया. Fantastic.
I always say that the listener is greater than the speaker.
I always wait for Akin.
When you speak, nobody comes and says, "Prabhuji, अच्छा class दिया," but nobody comes and says, "आपने अच्छा सुना." You heard, and that is the glory of the listeners. So therefore, pray for me. I need your prayers more than your appreciation.
When I saw Akincana Krishna, I had to attend at any cost because I cannot leave you. I love you so much.
Thank you. Love you too. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. To hear Mataji, please go ahead, Mataji, with your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Who's speaking? Am I allowed to see that person or?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Myself, Pooja Arora. I am from Haridwar, Prabhuji.
Haji.
Yes. Prabhuji, could I ask you the question in Hindi if you hear along?
No problem.
प्रभुजी कुछ दिन पहले एक डिवोटी हैं हमारे जान पहचान के, उनके फादर एक्सपायर हो गए. तो अभी आई मीन मे बी 23rd को. तो he is little bit confused. I'm also confused. He's just like my brother, devotee brother. He said that कल एकादशी वो करें कि नहीं, थोड़ा इसलिए confused हैं. तो वो कहने लगे एकादशी मैंने कभी छोड़ी नहीं है, तो वो चाह रहे थे कि मैं एकादशी करूं, बट अभी 17 दिन नहीं हुए, तो मे बी दैट्स व्हाई ही इज कंफ्यूज्ड कि कैसे करना है.
तो आप वो कर्मकांडी ब्राह्मण को पकड़िए, हरिद्वार में तो बहुत मिलेंगे, अच्छे एक ब्राह्मण को पकड़िए और वो क्रियाक्रम करवा दीजिए ना.
He is not from Haridwar, Prabhuji. He is from I think he is from Meerut.
हाँ ठीक है ना, मेरठ में क्या ब्राह्मण लोग नहीं है क्या? तो उनको पकड़ के करवा दीजिए ना, कर्मकांड के अनुसार करवा दीजिए. और फिर आप कीर्तन कराइए, कथा कराइए, हरिनाम कराइए. सबसे महत्वपूर्ण चीज ये है कि आप हरिनाम करिए और कर्मकांड के अनुसार भी आप करवा दीजिए. आप तिथि देखकर आप उनकी अंतिम क्रियाएं वगैरह करवा दीजिए.
नहीं प्रभु जी, कल एकादशी वो करें कि नहीं? एकादशी का
आप तिथि देखिए ना, वो उसके अनुसार वो ब्राह्मण जो वो देख कर बताएगा ना आपको. वो सब देखना पड़ता है ना, चार्ट्स वगैरह देखना पड़ता है ना, तो वो आप करवा दीजिए.
ओके प्रभु जी, थैंक
उनके
यू
लिए
सो
एक्सपर्ट्स
मच.
रहते हैं, वो सब एक्सपर्ट्स रहते हैं उसके लिए. वो उसमें वो कर्म कांड के अनुसार. हम भक्त लोग वैसे इतना इंपॉर्टेंट समझते नहीं. अगर आपने हरिनाम किया, संकीर्तन किया, तो उससे आत्मा को जितना लाभ मिलता है कर्म कांड से नहीं मिलता, वो तो आप जानते ही हैं. ठीक है ना. बट फिर भी हम कहते हैं कि आप कर्मकांड के अनुसार उनके क्रियाक्रम कराइए और फिर उसके बाद आप आपके घर पे या उनके घर पे आप सत्संग कीजिए, कथा कीजिए, हरिनाम करवाइए और लोगों को प्रसाद खिलाइए उनके नाम.
जी वो प्रभु जी काफी अच्छे डिवोटी हैं, रोज हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र भी कर रहे हैं और गरुड़ का में भी पाठ भी उन्होंने रखवाया है. बट वो सिर्फ एकादशी के लिए थोड़ा कंफ्यूज थे, अदरवाइज वो अपने फादर के निमित्त कर रहे हैं. अब रेगुलर
कर्मकांड के नियम अनुसार करवाइए आप. हमको कोई आपत्ति नहीं, करा सकते हैं आप. ब्राह्मण से बात करके करिए.
ओके प्रभु जी, हरे कृष्णा. थैंक यू सो मच प्रभु जी.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Prahlanand Prabhuji, please go ahead with your question, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Mataji. I don't have a question, but I wanted to have some reflection here. And this is regarding Virakti, which Prabhuji, defined in the earlier part of the... Can you hear me, Prabhuji?
I can definitely hear you. I can't see you.
You want me to see? Okay. Okay. Then Pranam. It's very cold over here in Las Vegas, so I'm wearing some outfit for that.
Okay. All right. I'll give you company. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Haribol. Right. That's so nice, Ravi. Okay. I was just going to refer about the Virakti which you defined, and that is also been defined in the 11th canto by Navyogendra Sri Kaviji. That also is Narad Muni's dialogue with Yudhishthira Maharaj. And there where it says, in the slok, it says, Bhakti Parisanubhava Viraktir Anyatra Chaistik Ekakala Prapadyamanasya Yasasnata Syut Tusti Pustik Shudpayana Anughasana. So, in our own case of doing bhakti, and we are initiated devotees chanting for so many years. And this slok is actually the one which, finds out which stage of virakti or, bhakti we are progressing, where we stand on that. If, I'm not feeling one of these tusti, pusti, shudpa and anughasam, then probably I'm not developing the virakti. So I'm not having the proper bhakti. So Narad Muni is, giving us this kind of parameters by which we can feel that, whether we are developing virakti or not. And if we have not developed that virakti and we are still attached to worldly relationships and all that, then we are bound to commit some offenses to other Vaishnavas also. So this is my personal experience, and I feel that I lack some of these kind of things. But thanks to your lecture and thanks to Narad Muni, that we always can progress in the guidelines given by Sri Prabhupada. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
That's a very good word. I like that word. Bhakti, Parishano Bhakti, Virakti, Anyatra, Chaishatrika, Eka Kalaha, Tushti, Pushti, Shuddha Paino, Anughasam. Just as when you eat, three things happen. You get nourishment, you enjoy the eating process, you get strength. So also when you perform bhakti, then these things happen. So virakti happens, knowledge takes place, you develop bhakti, that kind. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Riya Rajita Mataji, please go ahead with your question, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Panchang Pranam. Thank you for the lecture. Prabhuji, our soul is so much materially conditioned. So how can we develop patience while performing bhakti? Because every day there is so much material propensity.
Please appear.
Prabhuji, my video is on.
Oh, really?
Yes, Prabhuji, we can see her.
Okay, all right. Okay. Your Puja Arora, is it?
No, Riya.
No.
Riya.
Oh, Riya. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay, tell me. Yeah.
Prabhuji, I'm saying that our soul is so much materially conditioned and we are new to bhakti. So every day there is a tug of war. How do we develop patience that every day we have to do the regulative principles, follow the regulative principles and chant 16? Because I tend to fall, 1 to 2 days I will perform the bhakti, and then the very next day I'm like watching Netflix and all. So I really need help.
So the thing is, your spiritual standards, you can't think of giving up something. In our process, now we don't think of giving up. We think of how to take up. Like, for example, children, you see how they play sometimes with knives, and the mother's worried that she'll cut himself. But if you try to take that knife away from the child, he will start crying. You have to distract him. So what do? You give him a nice toy, which is harmless. So naturally, then he will drop the knife. Our process of advancing is also like that. We can't live without, without doing anything. We need to absorb ourselves. Either we are absorbed in Krishna consciousness or we'll be absorbed in Maya. There's no limbo. We cannot be in limbo, right? So therefore, let us focus on how we can fill our day, our time with Krishna's activities. Yes. So make a beginning. Say maybe you're chanting, say how many? 16? Okay.
Yes,
so you're chanting 16. All right. So you started there. Now you're there. And then say maybe, you are following, say, the principles and things like that. And you start from there, like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And gradually, you go on increasing it, step by step. Little by little, you have to take that step, baby steps, small baby steps, and then go on increasing. And as long as then you increase your Krishna consciousness, naturally, then when you don't, like, for example, you take up preaching programs, it's a very wonderful way of being engaged. Go online, speak with friends and say that let's discuss Gita or something like that. Something which you really like, which you really love, and then dovetail it with Krishna consciousness. Something like that. And that way, like, for example, say, okay, you watch Netflix. There could be some nice spiritual themes in it, and there could be some nice documentaries from where you can learn or something like that, and And instead of watching really silly, violent, and all those crappy things, you start there. Maybe reduce. That. So there are various ways how you can begin. So gradually, when you are, like for example, I completely forgot. Like today there was a class. But then as soon as I realized it in the morning, at around 2 o'clock, I had met a lot of people. They had come to the temple because it's a New Year's Day. And then all of a sudden I realized, Shama Gauri Mataji's class hai. So then immediately I just took the Bhagavatam and I said, what's that verse? What's that verse? And I started reading. And it kept me engaged till, I started giving a class. So when you take up these responsibilities and when people look up to you, Are Prabhuji, abhi now, see, maybe Riya is going to give us some class or she's going to come here and we're going to do kirtans. So then, you become obligated. Then you will stop thinking about Netflix. Then you'll, open, say, maybe a Bhagavatam and read something and go and speak. So whatever you like, engage in Krishna's service and start little. And that way you can overcome it. Put yourself in the...
Thank you, Prabhuji.
I would suggest that, connect with devotees. Don't be alone. If you're alone and you're bored, then you'll end up doing all these things. When you're bored, that is the worst time, when you're bored, isn't it? When you feel bored, that's when you actually, mind goes all silly places. So put yourself with people. Don't be alone. Don't lock yourself in the room and, be with people. That way.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Very nice answer. Shama Gauri Mataji, please go ahead, Mataji, with your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavata Pranam, Krishna Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Very, very beautiful class. Thank you for the, mentioning about the Dehu Gram you went, Sant Tukaram. It was really wonderful. And now, I realize, why people don't like Hare Krishnas. When before coming to Krishna consciousness, one of my friends, she was always trying to prove me that how Hare Krishna is bad. And I was in my mind was saying that drinking alcohol means whole world knows that drinking alcohol is bad, eating meat is bad, and Hare Krishnas don't do that, and other people do that. She's not saying anything about them, and she's saying Hare Krishnas are bad. So now you said, the cigarette factories and all meat factories and their business will stop if everybody, the whole world becomes Hare Krishnas then.
Yeah.
It was really wonderful, Prabhuji. Yeah, and see, and how, people bother devotees. Sant Tukaram, he was not bothering anybody. He was helping the people around. But the person, he was getting frustrated because of Sant Tukaram was becoming famous. Because of his devotional service, he was becoming famous. Yes. Nothing else, yeah. But still, he was having problem with him and he bothered him so much. But still, Krishna came and saved him. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for your time. And
yes, thank you very much. So, meet you again some day for a class.
Yes. Prabhuji, one question in the chat box. Shall I read, Prabhuji, if you have time?
Yeah. I have time.
Okay. Jyoti Mataji is asking, Hare Krishna, Dandavata Pranam, respected Prabhuji, how to get detached when we are 100% working in and for material world. Jnana and Vairagya seems impossible. Seeking bhakti is difficult too. Could you please share your teachings on this, Prabhuji? Do you want to read me one more time, Prabhuji?
Sorry?
Do you want me to read one more time?
I understood. He's saying that we are 100% engaged in our duties and how to be detached.
Yeah.
How to apply what you're teaching. So, Prabhupada has told us to chant Hare Krishna. Even if you're working, chant Hare Krishna. At least in a week, you take out time and go to a satsang program. At least take one day in a week to visit the temple, meet with devotees. If you have a counselor, Hare Krishna counseling, attend those programs. Satsang, attend those programs. Come for online classes. These are the ways how you can start. Listen, read Srimad Bhagavatam at home. Yes, connect with devotees, make friends with them. Call devotees to your home. And if you're working 100%, that means I'm sure you're earning a lot of money. Yes. So please share that also for spreading Krishna consciousness. Donate for Krishna conscious causes. Call great devotees to your home, serve them prasad. Very, very quick way of developing Krishna consciousness. Serve devotees. Yes, that is how you develop. That is how you develop and increase your Krishna consciousness. So apply all of them at different times. They're based on your convenience. Does that seem practical? These are all solutions given by Prabhupada. Yeah, it's not, none of the solutions are mine. So whatever I speak, I'm just repeating. None is my. If it's my own solution, then it's not worth accepting. Yes. So Ayan Saha yes. Is having.
Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. I had one question, Prabhuji, that for one day I had fever, so I was not able to wake up today morning and chant Hare Krishna. And I chanted Hare Krishna Mahamantra at 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So Prabhuji, can you tell something about that? Was it okay, Prabhuji?
Why it's not okay? Definitely it's okay. Nam akari bahuda nija sarva shaktis tatrar pita niyamitaha smaranena kalam. You know that verse, yeah? We all chant this early morning. So there are no rules or regulations for chanting Hare Krishna that you should chant only at this time or this time or this time. You can chant any time. But we say preferably that morning time is the best. So chant in the morning.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. I really had a confusion about it. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
No problem at all. Hare Krishna.
For him, the problem is he's a young boy, he's in class 10. So his father is not allowing him. So he's coming against the wave in the house. He's attending all the Bhakti Sangha program and he's studying. Evening come for my Bhagavatam class. So throughout the day, so his father has stopped him to attend that. So he cries, what can I do? I want to come for the morning chanting. They stop the net. So he's really struggling so much. He's in class 10.
I see, you should do some things to pacify your father, because if your father is like that, that's not good for you. So do your material duties properly. Don't take extreme steps. Never take extreme steps. You're only going to flip out your father. So therefore, balance your family. Let them feel you're normal. Don't show any drastic changes in your behavior. That is very dangerous. And we all have done it. I know I've made that mistake before. Really, I went to very extreme and my parents were hurt actually. I said things like, oh, you don't love me and things like that. Silly things, which I don't know why I said those things. But then now I'm trying to make up for it. I'm making them feel that I love them, I care for them. And if you ever need anything, I'm there for you. So therefore, always give this feeling from the very beginning. When they feel that my son will be there for me, no matter what, then they will not hesitate in allowing you to join Hare Krishna. Give them this feeling that you will be there to serve them. Because remember, Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava. If you do not get your mother's blessing now, you'll find it very difficult. Father's blessing. Are your parents demons? I'm sure they're not, yes. But if they are, then yes, that is the extreme case. But I'm sure that, they are reasonable and definitely you should try to be nice to them as much as possible. Why they have become like this, I really don't know. Why should they become like this? You are Indian, is it not? You're Indian.
He's Bengali from Chandin.
Bengali. So I think that there's something wrong. Please look how you're dealing with it.
Yes, Prabhuji, it was my fault. I didn't balance properly. I can understand.
Yeah. So try to do something and adjust it. It's not a very favorable situation. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. If nobody have any questions, we can end the call here, Prabhuji, with your permission.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for enlightening class today. We are very grateful to you and we look forward to your association again and again in the future. Let's pay our obeisance to Prabhuji. Panchakalpatarubhyascha Grant Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Akincana Krishna Prabhuji ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for such a beautiful
Thank you,
Thank you so much,
Prabhu,
Prabhu, for the
for
beautiful
a
class.
wonderful class, Prabhu.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Hare
Once
Krishna,
again,
Vijay
closing the call for Hari
Happy New
Bol.
Year. Happy New Year.
Hari Bol.